Hi, it's Queen Imogen talking to you from Sydney, Australia, where I have some very exciting news, something I've been working hard on for, well, at least the last 23 years, but it's sort of culminated in something I chose to do, when was it? 8 months ago, around the slipper room incident. Because we seem to be having a lot of problems in burlesque and a lot of stuff happening online, which is important and amazing, but it shouldn't be our only avenue and the only way we get to discuss these things, because I feel like sometimes we bring up really, really massively important issues and there's no real resolution, and people don't really understand why there are problems that are being called out when, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of it comes with the baggage of being a stripper. And, you know, I know you all think you're perfectly fine and perfectly safe, but to be honest with you, when you skip across to the bad side of the tracks and appropriate a bunch of material from a demographic of performers that have no rights, some of the problems that taint their worlds are going to taint your world. And so I think it is really vitally important that we start to communicate better about some of the issues that we're seeing in burlesque, because they're certainly not new, and there's certainly things you can do about them, and there's certainly things we should be trying to do about them as a community. My history, this all began back in 1995 as a very brave, very ballsy young woman. I got myself a job with the government through the Sex Workers Outreach Project and funded by the AIDS Council of New South Wales. And although the job was officially to stop strippers spreading AIDS, because apparently we're so riddled with disease, you can catch AIDS by just looking at us, I chose to, rather than fully educate strippers about AIDS, because they were pretty worded up on it, I chose to turn around and educate the government about strippers and about our rights and about our workplaces. And the things that facilitated this was that there was a royal commission going on into the King's Cross Police, and all attempts, I certainly wasn't the first stripper to attempt to get our rights acknowledged, and to have our workplaces changed in terms of the conditions and in terms of our treatment. We were having, strippers end up chopped up in bags by the roadside, and strip clubs set on fire by the bosses for their insurance, and the strippers were still inside and died. And the history is really full on. In Australia, women set on fire for standing up for themselves. And that's just the history of women standing up for themselves in the red light district here. Sally Ann Huckstep, it's Juanita Nielsen. And it was very nearly me, and very nearly the women who preceded me in their efforts to strike, which was successful. I love ladies, hats off to you. I love those images of you striking, and your stories are so important, and I hope we can find a way to tell those stories soon. But yeah, the conditions in the strip clubs were dire, and it was very violent, and intimidation tactics and brutality were often used to shut us down whenever we spoke up for ourselves, and that's definitely what happened to my predecessors. But 1995, the police were under investigation for corruption in King's Cross, and this meant that somebody like me, who had this job, who was trying to make change in our workspaces, could actually have a chance of success, and I was. So what I did was create a little workplace practices document for burlesque. It was very small. It was just on the back of a healthcare flyer, like all about AIDS, how to stop getting AIDS, and clean your pole and do all this stuff, and wear gloves when you fist each other. But then I also, on the back, snuck in all this sort of we acknowledge your rights and you have rights. And it was, yes, I gave them the number for the taxation department, because I'm like, you want to charge us tax, you give us the same rights as other taxpayers. And they listened. I gave them, I had the support of healthcare workers, I had the support of the AIDS Council, I had the support of arts law, and everybody listened for a change. And it's amazing to listen to a young stripper who didn't have much going at the time. I'm really proud of my younger self, and I was particularly proud yesterday when I got to actually go and revisit all those old documents. But I'll get to that. Slipper room incident. That could have been handled a bit better, I felt. I was really appalled by that, but there was nothing I could do. I just felt stay out of it. I'm an Australian. I don't understand America and some of the stuff that goes on there. I just read everything from a distance and just felt for everybody involved there. But I thought, this stuff's all based on law. There are laws around these things, workplace practices. There's something there. So I rang the union here. And I felt silly because this sort of stuff doesn't happen here, but I just thought, well, I got to do something. So I reformed my acquaintanceship with the union. And I said, well, what can you do? We need a workplace practices document for burlesque, and it's urgent. And they went, oh yeah, what do you do? And I was like, well, we're strippers, and we work in variety, and we're gorgeous. Everybody, we need this because we come from stripping, and it's really, really important that you listen. And she went, oh yeah. She was great, but she didn't quite understand why we needed this, whereas I do, because I come from the mothership of stripping, and I've seen all this stuff before. So then, of course, Me Too happened. And I think it was just one too many men in burlesque called out, and it wasn't even in Australia. And I just went, that's it. Called them again and said, we need a workplace practices document for burlesque. And she was like, yes, absolutely. Sexual harassment must be a real problem for you. And I said, it's not a problem for me. God help anybody who sexually harasses me. I might take them up on their offer, and then they will really be sorry. But she understood, and we had a meeting, and it was just the first meeting. And I really thank Ignatia. I really thank you for your time and your energy. But she said, yes, you do need a workplace practices document. We don't understand anything about your world. We don't understand anything about short format performance. We have nothing in place for you. And I went, oh, okay, well, we'll work on that. Me Too was massive, and it took a lot of the union's time. And Ignatia went another way, and I sort of just went, oh, well, maybe we don't need it. Maybe everything's okay. We're here in Australia, everything's safe. But then we had the death of Eurydice Dixon, who was a young woman, a young performer on her way home from work, and she was raped and murdered. And she was a comedian, not a burlesque performer, but all the same as a matriarch. I felt that. I was like, no. This is not right. There's something really wrong. Because the thing that the police did was turn around and say, oh, well, women should be more careful walking home. And I was just like, what century are we in? Did you really say that? What about our rights? What about the punishment? What about putting the onus back on men to take responsibility for themselves and for each other and for this shitty behaviour? And I said, no, absolutely not. I rang the union again. I said, we need this workplace practices document. And I had a new acquaintance who'd taken Ignatia's spot, Erica. She was fantastic. She rang me. We've been speaking, and she said, right, yep, you need this. We don't understand exactly what your work entails, but come in and we'll have a meeting. And she said, in the meantime, whilst we're waiting, let's have that meeting after this thing's coming out, because we've put it in place that you need a workplace practices document. We realise lots of people do. So we're waiting on a draft copy of a workplace practices document. On my birthday, it came out. Isn't that exciting? Australian Live Performance Industry Code of Practice. Now, this is not at all tailored for burlesque or short format performance, but it covers discrimination, harassment, sexual harassment, and bullying. It's got little sections here like criminal offences. What are employees' legal obligations? Employers' legal obligations, sorry. It's got vilification, victimisation, complaint handling and investigation procedure. gold. Bingo. Now, the exciting thing really is that I'm not the only person from the only short format genre that's put up their hand and said we need a code of workplace practices. I'm pleased to see that the drag queens are also getting on it because they've realised that, well, it's actually a venue has realised that their spaces aren't really particularly safe and that they would like to change that. Bravo. So it seems like we're going to push this across. There's going to be a whole collective of us doing it. And here's where I draw your attention to this. There's actually two things I'd like to draw your attention to. We are covered in burlesque as variety artists. That's really exciting. But what's also really exciting, and what I loved doing yesterday, was pulling out the original document about strippers and what their rights are. And I can tell you, strippers, it's all there. I did it in the 90s, and it hasn't actually been looked at a lot. It's like you need to go, it's got all this sort of antiquated language, because I didn't write the thing. I'm just the one who set the ball in motion and told them what needed to be in there. But waitresses are covered as well. Anybody wearing, the wording was skimpy outfits, down to full nude. There are rates of pay, there are loadings, there are, this house fee business. I'm not stripping anymore, but my goodness, what is going on with that? You're entitled to an hourly rate. And I know I'm causing a bit of trouble here, and most of you probably won't want it, but, I like trouble. Especially when I'm in the right. Especially when I'm in the right, and I am in the right. So what we're going to do now is we've got to tailor this with the community's help, and with this, and with the strippers document to suit burlesque. And so what we're doing, Erica and I, we're calling a meeting in Sydney, Australia, between the MEAA and burlesque performers. And we're asking the community to join us. The 22nd of August at 6 p.m, it's in Redfern. I'll be creating a Facebook event. It'll be called Burly Rights Oz. Why not? And I'm inviting people to come along and have a say as to what should be on the agenda. Now, it is just a first meeting, but I would like a really diverse demographic to show up. I would love it, of course, women, I know you'll be there. People of colour, can you join us if you can make the time? Queer people, trans people, differently abled people, if you work in burlesque, or even if you don't and you just want to sit back and sort of have a listen to what the MEAA have to say. It's mainly going to be about burlesque, though. Strippers, you're also welcome to come along and just to join us, of course, sit in the room, have a listen. You're welcome to talk to me or write to me about if you need to know anything about what's in that original document. Better still, contact the MEAA Entertainment and Arts Alliance. Now, we do need to join, some of us, in order to get this going on, because it's sort of the way it works is we pay for membership and then they can focus on us. And I'm a member, and look at all the attention they've given me. It's quite incredible to have this level of response with just one member asking. So I encourage you all, if you are established, and I would really love it if people in each state could join, just because legislation changes from state to state. And so I would love it if someone in each state could join, if you're established or if you're just got a little bit of money. That's great. Look, if you don't, doesn't matter, give me a little bit of your time, especially if you're from a legal background. I need a little team, and we're going to have to work through this together, but I do want to hear from the community as to what your needs are and what your concerns are in terms of your workplace, in terms of the things that have been happening. And then the union takes that and we start to really nip and tuck this document to be for us. Very excited. It's also happening for drag. And I hope, of course, as we all do, that it will extend to circus, and that it will extend to variety, to comedy, even to anybody who's doing this short format work. We're not really well understood by the unions. I'm not going for standardised rates of pay, But I will always push, as I always have, for a base rate of pay, for a rate of pay that we do not go beneath. Now, in Australia, for burlesque performers, it has been $120 since I pushed the rate up in 1995. And even then, when I pushed the rate up in 1995 to be equitable with what other people were being paid in the performing arts, it still took about 10 years to get there. But I really want to thank and credit Sex Intense for putting her foot down one day and just saying, we were all getting paid $50, which seemed like so much money because we were used to getting paid $15 in the strip clubs, but we were getting paid $50 when we did a drag lineup back in the day, and they'd have like this sort of token burlesque performer there to be a bit of female energy in the night. And we were like, wow, $50. And then we sort of heard the drag queens were getting paid $250, and we were like, hang on, this is walking around in a pair of shoes going, wah, 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 wah. I can do that and pull things out of my vagina and fist fuck my girlfriend and excuse me. All right, $60 is fine. But we did put it up, and when Sex just put her foot down and went, I'm getting $80 next time, we all went, yeah, we're all getting $80. So if we stand together, we can raise our rates of pay to be equitable with what other variety artists are getting paid. I do consider this the work of Dixie Evans and Jenny Lee, by the way. If you're in America, you can do the same. I think it's the Variety Arts Union that they were a part of, but you guys can get across it if you want to. Base rate of pay is closer to $300, but we'll talk about that with Erica. We'll also talk about the fact that, community events can't afford that. When it's our friend putting on a show in a tidy room, for example, Inkley, and there's 60 seats or even 40 seats, I don't know how many seats are in that room, then of course we can't expect to get paid that. And so we need to talk about that with them and explain that to them. They do understand. They also understand that naturally some people are worth more than others because. And they support that as well, and that's the way it is right across the arts. Fuck, I hate my hair today. It's just really pissing me off. But anyway, all that aside, I had a fucking great day. And I'm really happy to see things progressing here in Australia. And I know the MBA thing has been difficult, and it is, but let's just see where it goes, okay? And I do support everybody in the things they've said. I'm just very proud of us, and I think this is really important work. So I'm just going to focus on this stuff, and I hope you'll come along with me. Okay, August 22nd, 6 p.m, Redfern. I'll be putting the details up. Burly Rights Oz. That's the one. Burly Rights Oz. Unreal. Thanks, everybody. Bye.